Yo here, I'm a big fan of tactics games and horror, so when I was offered a copy by Webzen, the publishers of MEMOLITH Forsaken by Light, I jumped on the opportunity. This seemed like a match made in undead tactic heaven, and it somewhat is, but more on that later. Before we get into this video, I was given a free key, but this has no impact on the thoughts expressed here. Mild spoilers ahead. MEMOLITH at its core is about the battles. You control a party of 3, each with their own weapons and skills. When you enter a map, the undead hordes are unaware of your existence, so you get to sandfisher your way around, thinning out the hordes by killing the ones not facing you. These small arrows indicate where the enemy is looking. You can mouse over them to see the exact grid squares. This is the only time direction facing matters in this game. If an enemy sees you, they let out a screech, alerting all nearby enemies to you, starting a battle for your life. The combat itself is fun. Each character has movement points and weapon points. Movement points are self-explanatory, and weapon points are what your attacks use. You have environmental objects to interact with, throwable weapons you carry with you, the ability to push and pull enemies into other things, and a variety of skills that keep the game engaging. It also helps that the game is not afraid of spectacle, allowing for some truly chaotic fights to unfold that really portray the tooth and nail fight for your life theme going on. Just be prepared for the classic point blank miss, because attacks aren't guaranteed. So what's the point of all this fighting? Well, your main objective for each level is to light these pillars. While in other media, lighting buildings might attract the undead hordes to you, here it eradicates them, clearing the level. It takes one turn to light the pillar, so you have two choices. Either kill everything beforehand, or get in a position where you can light the pillar before an enemy hits you, which knocks you out of it. During the beginning and middle portions of the game, levels are more like puzzles, where you're trying to clear the level as efficiently as possible because you're not strong enough to just brute force it. Like closing a door to block the line of sight, just to walk into a window. It's a really interesting way of doing a tactics game, and this of course stops happening once you get souped up. Not that I'm complaining, by the way, because it's still a fun time. The game has 3 acts. Act 1 has a bit of a learning curve while you try to understand the mechanics of the game and how to best take on these levels. Once the player starts getting strong skills, the game starts flowing a lot better. That is until the Act 1 final boss. Olivia is a problem. From our map-wide AoE attack to the never-ending hordes of enemies, the difficulty spikes here, and I would not be surprised if some people quit. The only tip I'll give is that if you're behind these objects, and I don't think distance matters, you won't take damage from the map-wide AoE attack, unless of course your character decides to play hero. One thing I edited out from this clip is the enemy turn. Trust me when I say this, you're going to want to play the game at 2x speed, which can be done in the top left corner. Now, Olivia is where 2 things about this game come into play. One is the save system. When you die, you are given 4 choices. Restart on an autosave, which is usually a turn or 2 ago, restart at the last checkpoint, the point you entered the room, or before you started the expedition. A save system like this is really appreciated when we get to the second thing that comes into play. Trial by error. The game has a poor way of displaying info, so you're constantly having to figure out the hard way. How come my characters auto-attack sometimes and other times they don't? How exactly does blocking work, and what are my odds of doing it? How does corruption, which is a pretty big part of the game, causing your character to lose HP each turn if they are corrupted, gets calculated? I have no idea. Sometimes I get extra movement points or weapon points and I don't know why. When a character is built up, they will have so many passives it's hard to remember all of them or why certain things are happening. Information is not presented in a clear way and definitely makes the game harder. But you overcome that. You beat Olivia and move on to Act 2. This is the best act in the game. You have a better understanding of the mechanics, the encounters are more interesting, and the bosses are hard, but not a big spike like Olivia. The start of Act 2 is also the brief moment when the crafting system matters. You are introduced to the crafting system pretty early into Act 1 after you help restore the blacksmith. In my case, I didn't find a crafting recipe for a few hours after unlocking the system, but that was just bad path selection on the map. Act 1, the recipes you can find are more side grades or slight bumps to your gear you have. Act 2, you can start crafting actually good gear, but by that point, you either already found better gear or are about to. The crafting system seems like it was mainly intended to keep your other party members geared up, but since you can swap gear, this doesn't matter, making this system mostly pointless. You may have noticed I said other party members. This game has a total of 9 playable characters you can find in the world, with a hard limit of 3 party members, save for a few scripted occasions. For the most part, I never felt the need to swap. The character you start with is a good tank, and the Shadow Priest gets to be perma-stealth and clears regular levels essentially solo. The only exception is the Black Knight. The Black Knight is a boss you fight in Act 1 and can help in Act 2. Instead of weapon points, he uses his HP as a resource and he is absolutely yoked. He can also essentially solo a level, although in his case not stealthily. I used this party for the remainder of the game and had zero urge to change it. Each character has skill trees where you slot shards in that give various abilities and passives. Again, By the time I reached about halfway through Act 2, I was pretty much done with this system. Nothing I found afterwards really made a difference. You might be noticing a pattern here. The combat is great, but the surrounding systems are not it cheap. Eventually, you beat Act 2 and you move on to Act 3. Act 3 is Crystal Simulator. Act 3 is a slog, no other way around it. Every level is covered in darkness and you have to light crystals to not get corrupted. On top of that, you have to do these annoying crystal path puzzles. While they're not hard by any stretch of the imagination, because you can only control separate characters during the turn-based phase of the game, that means these puzzles must also be turn-based, which very quickly adds up to time wasted as you try to maneuver crystals around. If that's not bad enough, you also have to fight 3 separate identical bosses with crystals. While it's possible to beat them in 2 to 3 turns, if you're fortunate enough, it's also very possible you're forced into a slog of a fight because enemies keep pushing the crystals all over the map. I would be surprised if there was someone out there who enjoyed this, and by the time I reached the final boss, I was over it. Well, guess what? The final boss also involves moving light crystals. I'm not going to spoil the final boss, he's more annoying than hard, and once you understand the mechanics, you will probably have no problem beating him. Rich rewards you with a bit of text into a quick credit sequence, then poof, back into the main menu. Before we wrap this video up, there are a few other things I'll touch on real quick. When your characters are low and it's time to head back to HQ, some of the light pillars you restored go out, causing those areas to be filled with enemies. While this does make trekking through these locations again a grind, this was entirely a first act problem. Act 2, you're strong enough that you don't need to go back often, allowing you to clear the map pretty fast. There's a weapon durability system that I have no idea how it works. I saw this broken weapon icon once during my entire playthrough, and it was quite literally 30 seconds before finishing the game. The story is a very minor part of the game, so if you are expecting a dark, interesting tale to match the dark, interesting gameplay, you're in the wrong place. You can find random lore tidbits throughout the world, but it feels like an afterthought. Each act has its own quests, some of which are optional. Nothing mind-blowing, but it does add structure to the player's actions. I like the art a lot, from the portraits to the character pixel art. I think it was all done well. The music is pretty bland, and there are no voiceovers save for creature sounds and occasional grunts. Finally, the game ran well until Act 3. Sometimes while moving around in Act 3 I would get this weird stutter. Also during the final boss I had my first and only crash. Thankfully with how the save system worked, I lost virtually no progress. Overall, should you play MEMOLITH Forsaken by Light? Yes, but it's a niche game with problems. The main selling point is the combat and the aesthetic, both of which deliver for me. Everything else is either mediocre or undercooked, and there are stretches of the game in both Acts 1 and 3 where it feels like you're progressing through mud. But for $23 Canadian, I think for a very specific group of people it's worth the price. I got 16 hours out of the game before finishing it, and I can easily see someone getting 20 plus hours. If you enjoy rough around the edges tactics games or cool horror art, you will probably enjoy this. For everyone else, give it a try when it goes on sale, because it's a unique, fun experience that unfortunately is bogged down somewhat by questionable decisions. If you want to discuss something shown here, leave a comment below. If you liked the video, hit that thumbs up button, and subscribe if you haven't. It helps the channel grow. My name's Yo, and I'll see you on the next one.